It's a beautiful night for bourbon. It's always a beautiful night for bourbon, and tonight it's an especially beautiful night for bourbon. If you can't tell, there's a little bit of frustration in my voice. Yeah, just trying to set up to do this video took about an hour because there was one thing after another that was just going wrong. And now I'm just hoping that my camera batteries don't die while I'm recording this. Yeah, it's been one of those nights, you know, what I like to call a Murphy night, because Murphy's Law is in full effect. Well, hopefully that's over, because hopefully I'm gonna like the bourbons that I'm presenting to you tonight. We've got two products from Brown-Forman, and most of you are probably familiar with both. But I'm not. This is the first time I've ever had either one. The first one is Old Forester 1910. It's 93 proof, and it is just like the 1920, which is the other one we're going to be having, or I'm going to be having. You can join me though if you've got some, or even if you don't, you can have whatever you darn well please. They are 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley. So they share the same mash bill. What differs is proof and the way they're finished. The 1910 is actually double-barreled. This happened purely by, well, not really accident, but by coincidence. Back in 1910, for which the bourbon is named, apparently one of their bottling lines caught on fire and came screeching to a halt. They had bourbon ready to bottle, and they didn't have anything to do with it other than to put it back in some new oak barrels, charred oak barrels, I believe, and hold on to it until they could get it bottled. Well, double oaking was born, apparently, at that time, and the 1910 it continues to be produced that way today. Brown-Forman is operated by descendants of the company's founder, George Gavin Brown. And it is the longest continually operating distillery in the United States. As of 2021, it has been operating for 150 consecutive years. It was one of the very few distilleries that was allowed to remain open during Prohibition, producing alcohol for medicinal purposes. Yeah, okay. Anyways, Old Forester bourbon is the original bourbon that was exclusively sold in bottles. Now, I've seen a lot of people say that they were the first bottled bourbon, and that even says so on the Brown-Forman website. But I read in another place that bottling was actually occurring, but the Old Forester was the first bourbon that was exclusively sold in bottles. All right, well, just because I'm pressed for time here, I decided that even before I started, I was going to pour my drinks. So I have the 1910 here, and as we look at it, swirl it around here, it is a nice sort of medium amber, golden brown, if you will. I get a little bit of a medicinal smell on the nose. That's definitely the alcohol, I think, at 93 proof. It's a little bit of sweetness, perhaps a little bit of leather on the nose. I'm not getting a ton of baking spices or anything quite like that. A little bit of vanilla, definitely some oak on there, a little bit of that barrel char. Perhaps some tobacco notes. Ooh, this has a sort of a dark chocolate taste to it. A little bit of fruitiness. It's got a nice little bite. I love a bourbon that bites me back. And at 93 proof, most of them don't. Ooh, butterscotch. Yeah, that's a really nice bourbon. I'm kind of wondering why I never tried it before. Let's move over to the 1920. 1920 would appear to be perhaps just a hair lighter in color, not quite as dark and amber. And, in spite of it being 115 proof, I think. Yes, 115 proof. In spite of that, it does not have that ethanol aroma that was coming off the 1910. But I am getting a whole lot of the same notes otherwise. There's sort of this leathery, tobacco-y, chocolatey, dark fruitish aroma. Ooh, now there's some cinnamon. Perhaps a little bit of clove in with that. Ooh, and there's the Kentucky Hug from that 115 proof. Boy, oh boy. This is a sweet bourbon without being overly caramelly or even overly vanilla, although there are some of those notes in there as well. Last week I talked a little bit about the grittiness of the Tom's Foolery. Well, this isn't quite as much, but there's a little bit of that in here too. Yeah, that's a good bourbon in its own right. Now, the reason I picked these two tonight, well, there's two reasons. I wanted to do the entire Whiskey Row series, but I've had a little bit of trouble in the last couple of weeks trying to find one of them. So when I find that one, I'll line up all four of them and we'll taste all four together. But I've seen a lot of people talking about what they're calling a 1915. Basically, half and half mixture of the 1910 and the 1920. So I poured myself one of those. I haven't tasted it yet. I'm going to try and see what this is like. This one is a bit more buttery. I don't get the ethanol off of this one that I got off of either of the other ones. The caramel seems to be more prevalent on the nose here, and the vanilla. Not as much of that leather or tobacco in the background. Let's see what it tastes like. Like the others, it has a rather oily mouthfeel. It's coating my tongue. This is finishing a little hotter and a little more peppery. I can feel it coming back up in the back of my mouth a little bit. I'd say that this finish is a little bit longer than either of the other two. There's definitely caramel and vanilla and oak in here. A little bit of that bitter chocolate that I tasted before. Actually, I tasted that with both the 1910 and the 1920. I don't think I mentioned that with the 1920. Well, this might be my new favorite cocktail. I'd have to say that regardless of how you drink it, the 1910, the 1920, or the so-called 1915, they are wonderful bourbons. Terrific pours. I would have a hard time choosing between them which one I would actually prefer. Because of that, I probably won't drink that 1915 too much because I'm enjoying the 1910 and the 1920 at least as much as I was enjoying that. And I'm just a little bit of a purist at heart when it comes to certain things. And definitely bourbon is one of those things. If I had to pick one, I think I would pick the 1910, which is a little bit of a surprise to me because I tend to prefer the higher proof bourbons. I usually won't call anything my favorite unless it's at least right around that 100 proof mark, and 93 is a little bit below there. So, yeah, these are good bourbons, definitely worth the price I paid for them. And I would certainly be looking forward to sampling a little more of this as the evening moves on and, well, also into the future. Like I said, we will do the entire Whiskey Row series. I might even throw in some of the other Old Forester products. I do have the 100 Proof Signature series on my bar as well. So we might do that, and if I can find the Statesman. I've seen that around, but again, not recently. If I can find that, I'll probably be interested in putting that one in the mix as well. So if you like my videos, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. What do you think of these bourbons? Have you tried mixing them together? Did you like it? Thanks for watching, and y'all come back now, you hear?